Good afternoon, good evening, good morning all across the globe. Appreciate everybody spending their time with Itex today, giving us a little piece of your day, including myself. You are now on the business track, and this particular presentation is all about open source and commercial software licensing, and I plan on everybody having fun today. So this is part of the business track. There is a development track as well. So here's the agenda, just to manage your expectations that will follow today. A little introduction and background for me. We'll talk about the Itex offerings. We'll spend a good bit of time on open source licensing, commercial licensing, and the perfect blend of both, which is what makes us very unique as Itex. First of all, my name is Al Sterling. I'm the pre-sales manager for Itex. I'm a career sales engineer, SA, solutions architect. I've spent my entire career working with technology companies across a variety of languages, platforms, services, working closely with sales, marketing, development, product, customers, more importantly. So spent my whole career with this across a variety of disciplines. So Itex. Actually, I need to ask my moderator. I'm hearing a whole bunch of room noise and talking in my headset here. There's an audio feed coming in. It's like I'm in the room having drinks. Anyway, I have to deal with it. Okay, so Itex have been around over 20 years. We're undeniably the PDF experts. As you heard earlier, we sit on the ISO boards. We drive PDF adoption, creation. So we've been around over 20 years, and we are the undeniable PDF experts. So the first thing I'd like to introduce is something we call our Itex 7 suite. These are our product offerings. So little caveat up front, you may see in further presentations the word Itex 7 suite, Itex 7 core. Pretty much the differences are core is our API or SDK for Java and .NET, and then a whole slew of add-ons to core make up what's called Itex 7 suite. Some of those add-ons are open source, some are closed source. So Itex 7 is our bread and butter. Think of it as an API and SDK to programmatically build and manipulate PDFs from code, from servers. Most folks think of PDFs as being, developed using Microsoft Word or a variety of other user interfaces. This is a programmatic way. So Itex 7 suite contains, again, add-ons that are closed source and open source. So this is the latest version 7 of our innovative PDF library. In this particular offering is available under open source AGPL v3. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, as well as a commercial license, which gives you a whole bunch of benefits. And this whole presentation is about the benefits of both. So Itex 7 suite, again, available under open source as well as commercial license. So now let me introduce another offering called Itex Ditto. So core and suite require you to program and manipulate and create PDFs through code. But it kind of leaves out people that are subject matter experts, business folks. So Itex Ditto solves this. It allows, without coding, non-technical people to participate in the development of PDF documents based upon templates. So that's what Itex Ditto is all about. So we start with data, we build a template around that data, and in production, it produces PDFs from that data. That's called Itex Ditto. Now, this particular offering is available as commercial license only. So this is not available as open source. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this enables users with zero technical background to now participate in the creative process of PDF documents. And then once these templates are made, it integrates with the production environment via Java or REST. I'd like to introduce another major product offering, and you heard Gary mention this earlier in his intro, Itex PDF to data. So this is the opposite. This takes existing PDFs and extracts data from it easily to integrate with other systems or with databases or whatever you want to do with it. So it's being able to intuitively take data from PDFs to integrate with other systems. Now, this particular offering is available as a commercially licensed offering only. It's available for Java and C# and .NET, as well as a command line interface version as well. Again, only commercially licensed. So there's kind of the main products here: Itex 7 Suite, Itex Ditto, and Itex PDF to Data. So let's talk a little bit at this point about open source licensing. Boy, we've been at this a long time. Our whole roots are in the open source community. We fully embrace it. We love the community. We love the camaraderie. We love co-development, co-problem solving, troubleshooting, you name it. So our whole roots are in the open source community for over 20 years now. Even today, much of our code remains open source, except for those closed commercial things I just mentioned, including some add-ons which augment Itex core. So it's kind of a great statement. If you're open, we're open. We'll help you, you help us. We work together in a collaborative environment. This is what open source is all about. So our open source licensing is under the AGPL v3 license, and there's some basic ground rules for how this works and how you utilize our software with your software. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. There are millions of Itex open source community members, bulletin boards, help desks. We all collaborate together. So no matter where you are in the world, there's someone that knows Itex. Maybe your next door neighbor, maybe someone down the street, across the county. You're not alone. So this is the benefit, again, the grassroots of open source licensing. And we're committed to serve this community as we keep this open source spirit alive. This is not going away. You may have heard this in the prior presentations, but it is the core essential for our business. Open source, love it. So we're active on GitHub, Stack Overflow, and now that COVID is kind of slowing down, hopefully, a variety of developer conferences all across the globe. So let's talk about, all right, use open source. What are the benefits of it? And how do you use it appropriately? So it's freely available code. Now you may see this acronym with a dash in it, / in presentations upcoming, FOSS, free open source software. That's what that stands for. It's freely available code from us. It's open source. You're free to use it, free to modify it, but you need to follow the rules of AGPL v3. You're able to utilize all the Itex core libraries at zero cost. So how do you get support? So, you download a version, you start working on a project, you run into trouble, how-to, best practices, that type of thing. Support in the open source community is via that community itself. So you would use your technical abilities with other people, help desks, bulletin boards, that type of thing. But you must, here's one of the rules, disclose and distribute all of your source code. If you modify Itex, that needs to be disclosed and distributed, as well as your source code. So this is one of the big rules. Now, there's many other rules, concerning this. That's not for the scope of this particular presentation, but under the AGPL v3, you must disclose and distribute all source code, including your own. Hence the nature of open source. Also, if you include Itex in your project, you're sharing it, that particular stack, everything has to be AGPL v3 compliant as well. Now, there's more details in that, but again, not for the scope of this presentation. Any modifications you make to the Itex libraries, they must also be disclosed. And you must mention Itex and include the Itex copyright. So these are some of the high-level usage rules of engagement for utilizing Itex in the open source library. So open source, great, community grows, we become extremely popular and implemented. Now, as our customer base grew, we realized that some folks, some organizations weren't able to freely share their code, their projects. So our product roadmap developed into two streams. Certainly, open source continues to thrive, but then we offered a commercial license, enhancing value to clients who didn't have the luxury of being able to share their source code. So commercial license benefits. You own your code. No need to share it. It's yours. So a commercial license gives you that benefit. No obligation to share your code with anybody. Also, it gives you security since you're now going to be dealing support with Itex, and we'll talk about that in a second. All those interactions, the data, the calls, the email interaction, we are now security ISO 20001 certified. It's a good thing. You will be assigned a dedicated enterprise support team. So no more, you won't have to go to the community as you would in open source. You would use our ticketing system support with some SLAs involved and dedicated, complete Itex and PDF experts to help you through any problems you might have or best practices, that type of thing. You also have input, being a commercial license customer, to our product roadmap, our development and product team. So new features, functions, things like that, you'll have actual input to. And I mentioned earlier, you'll have access with a commercial license to additional closed source add-ons that add additional functionality to Itex Core. And if you're a commercial software vendor and you'd like to include Itex in your offering, an OEM arrangement, if you will, we don't have one-size-fits-all agreements. All of our agreements are totally tailor-made to your customer's particular circumstances. Kind of like this little graph here, we have plans across the top. So on the left there, you see open source, AGPL version 3. We have commercial licenses, and then commercial if you're including Itex as a software company. So the conditions for open source, you can manipulate and process as many PDFs as you like. You must disclose, as I mentioned earlier, all your source code. Pricing is free, as long as you play by the AGPL v3 rules, and support is available through the community, support. Commercial licenses, you sign a subscription. It's based on volume. It's basically, in a high level, how many PDFs you process. And what process means, we could take that offline. It's an annual subscription, and support's included, dedicated professional Itex support with experts. And then if you're an OEM that like to include Itex, so it's all customized. So whatever your business model is, we will fit in with that. So we've talked a little bit about open source. We've talked a little bit about commercial. The nice thing about Itex is it's the perfect blend. We have both, depending upon what state of project you're in. So open source is our future. We continue to serve that developer world community with open source offerings. It's not going away. It's an essential part of our business model. You're able to reap the benefits of collaboration and participation worldwide. And in addition to that, if you're not able to share in that way with your source code, we have flexible commercial licensing for those that can't disclose their code. It protects your intellectual property. Let's say you're a bank and you're using Itex. Certainly, you're not going to want to share that. So you're a huge candidate for, let's say, commercial licensing. So we protect your intellectual property because you don't have to share it. Dedicated support team. And that's what I had planned for you today. Hopefully, I didn't go over too much. Up next, we have two tracks. On the business track, we have Andre and Rena next, and on the development track, we have Pavel and Israel. And I want to thank you all for your time today, and please come find me in the Ask Me Anything sessions, and those are scheduled at the end of the event in every track. So if you had questions, I didn't get a chance to go through the chat, but you can come find me in the Ask Me Anything sessions, and we can do a deeper dive, if you will. I want to thank you very much for your time, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.